So the last three philosophers from Miletus, Thales, Anaximander and Anaximenes, wanted to know what reality was, what it was made of, and how it could be described. But off out in the island of Samos, we had Pythagoras. Now I thought he might have sounded familiar. We all learned his theorem at school, you know, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, to do with right angle triangles. Well, Pythagoras was the first man to actually call himself a philosopher, or a lover of wisdom and obtaining it. But unlike the three Milesian philosophers, Pythagoras wasn't interested in the material nature of reality. So, you might have guessed he liked mathematics. But Pythagoras took this a step further by saying that all things are made up of numbers, as in, everything is made of numbers. This sounds like absolute bull, but let's look at why he said that. Anyone who studied science, especially physics at any level, will know that a ton of laws of nature can be accurately described by using mathematical formulae, like, you know, laws of motion, there's the laws of thermodynamics, there's Newton's laws, there's the laws of reflection, etc. Well, Pythagoras was the first guy to come up with the idea of expressing the world around him in terms of numbers and maths and formulae and equations, etc. Pythagoras was a bit of a, international man of mystery. Not a whole lot is known about him besides the fact that he travelled a hell of a lot to Egypt and he was mad about the old numbers. If Aristotle and other ancient accounts of him are anything to go by, however, we could assume that Pythagoras was able to fly, travel through space and time, had a thigh made out of solid gold, and could write on the moon. Pythagoras wouldn't have called himself a mathematician so much as a numerologist. In other words, he was more interested in the magical or mystical properties of numbers. Pythagoras was to numbers the same way Double Rainbow Guy was to double rainbows. Pythagoras had a group of followers called the Pythagoreans. Original, I know. These guys were a kooky cult of lads. For example, they saw the number 10 as being a divine number of sorts, so they said that our solar system had 10 numbers. 10 members as well. This would turn out to be correct, the sun and 9 planets, but it was more of a fluke on Pythagoras' behalf. Well, we can't say he was right anymore, eh, Pluto? Pythagoras wasn't famous only for mathematics, but for music also. Well, when I say music, I mean he was the guy who distinguished the ratios of concord between musical notes. This is why you can get instruments in Pythagorean tuning, if you ever see it in a music shop or whatever. With this theory, Pythagoras said that there is a musical harmony in the universe, which he called the music of the spheres. The 10 members of the solar system move, and because moving things make sound, so do these. Pythagoras said that if one achieves a certain mystical stance, one might be able to hear it. But I think he kind of meant some sort of a meditation. I don't know, I'm not too sure. Okay, so you've heard of Plato, right? Everyone's heard of Plato. Well, that's because Plato was the most prominent of all ancient Greek philosophers. And guess what? He was a Pythagoras fanboy. But we shouldn't be looking at Pythagoras like he did all the work and came up with all that stuff himself. Because of the Pythagoreans, we don't really know which ideas came from Pythagoras and which came from his followers. But I'm gonna go on a hunch and say Pythagoras wasn't able to fly. In the next episode, I'll be covering Xenophanes.